Are you seeing what I'm seeing? How did this happen? Ladies and gents, welcome back. We're looking at the polling data, and a lot of people are asking, is this true? Is this real? We've seen polling data like this coming out of the United States with Kamala Harris having a big bump in the polls just before she absolutely got demolished in the election against Donald Trump. Now, is this something that we're seeing that's familiar with that, or is this more similar to something else? Well, let's have a look at the numbers, and before people get upset with me, I'm just reporting on this. I'm giving you my opinion. You don't have to like my opinion. Leave yours in the comment section down below. I know I've been getting a lot of pushback on this, but hey, I'm seeing what I'm seeing, and I'm looking at this saying, on Twitter just yesterday, this is inexcusable. Obviously, the Liberal Party wants to win, but I'm not sure why when the Conservatives decided they don't. Somebody needs to be fired, or is this actually just, is this false? Or is this liberals skewing the polls? Well, I would say that this many polls wouldn't lead to that much of a change. You might see one or two and then a bump. But the Conservative Party, if you're looking here, are tanking in the polls as the Liberals are coming up, as well as everybody else tanking, incidentally. You have the Bloc Québécois and NDP losing a ton of support at the moment. But what is this getting into? Now, lots of theories are going around. There's Rupa Subramanya with the Free Press put out an article saying, will Trump's tariffs rob victory from Canada's Conservatives? Well, we'll yet to see about this. But really, at the end of the day, the rhetoric coming out of Pierre Poilievre compared to the Liberals on a number of hot button issues does not sound very different from the Liberals or the NDP at the moment. Now, the big hot button issue for a lot of people that are, let's just face it, liberal voters, typically liberal voters in Canada, left-leaning voters or, undecideds across the board, their hot button issues happen to be the tariffs and the Ukraine situation. Now, that being said, if those particular subjects don't seem very different, you're going to have a lot of people weighing the odds of, well, who do I actually vote for? I know that Justin Trudeau is absolutely terrible, but now Justin Trudeau's not around anymore. Who do I vote for? Now, this was a clip that I put up on social media. This is Marty talking about, well, exactly that, weighing the odds between the two.
Look at the reception he got when he went to the World Economic Forum. He didn't go there, but when he spoke at the WEF 2 weeks ago, like, people have an appetite for the right. What's the right? It's smaller government, smaller spending, controlling our border. And if we let the Liberals take that narrative, if it's a battle down the middle, I'm afraid that Pierre will not win a battle down the middle, because if it's down the middle with two parties that are virtually identical, then people will start to play the resume card and they'll say, look at Carney's resume versus Pierre's resume. And I'm sorry, folks, but on a resume basis, even though I think Carney's resume is garbage, people will look at it and go,
Seems to be the case. Now, Marty made this prediction weeks ago, and we're already seeing the fruits of that in the polling. It really does reflect that, and that's what a lot of people are saying along those lines. Now, this is before a lot of the extreme rhetoric started coming out from this whole thing. Now, let's get into this. I put this one out there as well, saying I think Poilievre's government is going to be exhausting. Seems like he's just behind the curve on a lot of issues. He needs nudging to get on the right page nearly every step of the way. Parental rights, he was a no-show until there was backlash. Team Canada relations tariffs, or retaliatory tariffs, until backlash, then pivoted to borders and the bad stuff, the really bad stuff. But then he's back on that. He's kind of somewhere in the middle, really wishy-washy, not very clear on that one. Now, seems He ends up in the right spot, but only when pushed. It's like Canadians will have to set aside time every week just to make sure he's on the right path. Now, I put this out there, and then things got worse, where we started seeing rhetoric like this. We will never be the 51st state. We will pay any price and bear any burden. Now this isn't great. Isn't a great look, because on the platform he said he won't talk about the transfer payments. He's not going to consider scrapping the dairy lobby. You know, how about prosecuting Chinese organized crime in the country? That's off the table, but there's all kinds of other any prices that would be on the table as it is. Now, don't get me wrong, when it comes to things like Ukraine or the economy, the Liberals are out to lunch, but this isn't what the voters are seeing. For the most part, except, you know, in the Liberal debate, I mean, Chrystia Freeland is just absolutely a psychopath.
The U.S. is turning predator. And so what Canada needs to do is work closely with our democratic allies, our military allies. I've been foreign minister. I know how to do that. That's why I would start with our Nordic partners, specifically Denmark, which is also being threatened, and our European NATO allies. I would be sure that France and Britain were there, who possess nuclear weapons. And I would be working urgently with those partners to build a closer security relationship that guarantees our security in a time when the United States can be a threat.
Right. So she wants a nuclear war with the United States. That's insane. That is just absolutely insane. But now, Pierre Poilievre has not always had the extreme position of stand with Ukraine under any circumstance. In fact, he said this in the parliament not too long ago.
People say they'll never be able to afford a home. We understand with this miserable record, he doesn't want to talk about Canada or Canadians. He'd rather spread falsehood about faraway foreign lands, Mr. Speaker. Will he not stand up for once for Canada, axe the tax so our families can...
Yes, let's absolutely think about Canada first. This is great. Let's think about Canadians and the needs of Canadians until it becomes a hot button issue. And then, as a leader of Canada's common sense conservatives, I've always been clear, and we stand with Ukraine in its defense against Vladimir Putin and illegal invasion. I also firmly believe that the future of Ukraine must be determined by the Ukrainian people. Conservatives will always stand on the side of freedom. This is in response to Donald Trump bringing peace negotiations to the table. Not a great look, not a really great look. And this is where a lot of Canadians are going. This is where the politicians are sweating over, do we choose Canada or Ukraine first? Not a big fan, not a big fan. Now, when it comes to the tariffs, of course, Pierre Poilievre has said we should do the, you know, we should talk about border security. We should talk about that stuff. But then the Liberals, they'll come back and say that he sounds too much like Trump. So he returns back to the messaging of we should have retaliatory tariffs.
But what I can say is that we need a Canada First agenda that will protect us against these unfair and unjustifiable tariffs, and that Canada First plan
yeah, unjustifiable tariffs
must include retaliatory tariffs to deter the attacks on our economy.
So not everybody agrees that it was unjustified. In the National Post even putting this out there. If you want a thriving bad stuff, you know, that the stuff with the F word you can't say on YouTube, trade in our country, attracting heavily armed cartels, super labs, and large and growing market of users subsidized by the government and unimpeded by law enforcement, just do everything Canada's been doing. That's right. So the question is, have you really been doing everything that you can? The tariffs are starting today, and the Liberals, and I would say the Conservatives in this, right, are saying we did everything we could.
You sure about that? You sure about that? You sure about that? You sure
yeah,
about?
Are you sure about that? Not so sure myself. But this is where we are in Canada with all of this. It really is something else, and this is why we end up with numbers like this. Now, again, these are my opinions. I may be right. I may be wrong. I'm not. It's up to you to decide. Leave a comment in the comment section down below. But here's Mac of the Knife on Twitter, on X, saying, this illustrates two things to me. People weren't actually pro-conservative party. Pierre they hated Justin Trudeau. My mom is a poster child for CBC, CBC induced brain rot, and she even wanted Trudeau gone. This is the thing. There was so much support for Pierre because Trudeau was still in power. Now he's, stepping aside, and we're gonna get Trudeau 2.0. I mean, Mark Carney is no different, but this is the reality. The CBC messaging is also falling flat. The centrist slogans aren't working. It's the economy, stupid, just isn't enough. It just isn't enough, and this is reflective in the polls. It is looking like we're dipping below majority seats for the Conservatives if this ends up being true. Now, in Rupa Subramania's article, she interviewed Eric Kaufman, and he made this a brilliant point in the article. I wanted to reiterate this one again. Eric Kaufman, a professor of politics at the University of Buckingham, argues that Poilievre's reluctance to mimic Trump reflects the fact that Canadian conservatism has always been very wet, with conservative politicians reluctant to challenge the progressive consensus on culture and identity. Poilievre only takes a stand on social issues like DEI and immigration when there's already overwhelming support in the press. He still plays within the safe sandbox of talking about economics issues, which is permitted for conservatives in the conservative politicians in Canada, says Kaufman. And if he were to become prime minister, I'm not expecting any kind of radical change on the woke front. Now, he says he's against the woke ideology, but this is the thing: people are fickle. People were against they were for the Conservatives and against the Liberals because of Trudeau's popularity. Where is Canada actually going? Do you think that Canada is actually shifting to the right, or is this an illusion? Do you think that Canada is going to shift right back? They're gonna rebound right back to a very, I would say, maybe a center left position, or maybe more left than center position in that right? Where do you stand on this? I'd love to hear what you guys have to say in the comments down below. I know I've been getting a lot of flack for speaking ill of the Pierre, but honestly, I've said this before. If I knew he was going to get elected, but if he doesn't go with what I'm thinking Canada needs moving forward, I'm going to speak about it. And so I have been, to my large unpopularity of my opinion. I'd love to hear yours in the comments down below. Leave a comment and we'll see you in the next one. Keep on trucking.